It's amazing to be here, especially after this morning and early afternoon. So much inspirational thought and leadership. Just thought it'd be great to say that. Delighted to be here. So you heard a little bit about me. I work at the Playhouse. The Playhouse is an arts organisation and theatre based in Derry, Londonderry. It produces great art. I suppose we would call it producing theatre and music that inspires. Not only do we produce it, but we encourage people to enjoy it. We also empower people through learning and engagement programs, and we also champion the arts in relation to making peaceful change. But the reason we often talk about being here is people making meaning together, creatively, peacefully, and with hope. That's the difference we think we make as a theatre. And I'm also here to talk about a project, a program and project that we're partnering with Eimear and others on, which is called Artitude. And that's a place-based, as it says there, collaborative movement. So bringing people across the Derry City and Stormont district area to look at how we might transform our relationship with nature, waste, the circular economy, and climate action. So the Playhouse is one of the first theatres on these islands to employ a climate action officer. Somebody asked me the question earlier on as to why does a theatre get involved in this work? And my response is just simply just how much you think the arts is, how valuable it is at the centre of your society or the centre of your civic life. If you value the arts and you have institutions that are artistically led, then of course it should be involved in this type of thing. So you can see the partners there: Zero Waste Northwest, Derry City and Stormont District Council, Queen's University, and of course NIRN. So we did a pilot, little short video. Hopefully it works. It'll tell you more than I can, just about some of the aspects of what happened in the pilot and the effects of it.
Society tells us that resources are scarce and that we need to be in competition with each other. Creating partnerships is an antidote to that.
So can you see just there? There is always 2 or 3 people who will tell me a fascinating story that's come from their granny or their uncle or something like that.
It was so lovely to see people coming in and discovering the joy of communal gardening.
We've got a compost bin at the house and we've got like a vegetable patch.
It's a beautiful setting and the work they do here is fantastic and creating the awareness.
People have had to make change themselves because they haven't been able to rely on the public authorities to do that.
We feed off each other, we assist each other, we back each other up.
There's authenticity in the stories of this project. There's multiple stories to tell.
There's workshops, we're teaching kids about the great outdoors, and you can see everybody's really enjoying it.
We'll all walk away with some more connects, friends, that we can get together and continue this learning process.
There's got to be an element where we're enabling the people who are already engaged and involving everyone else who definitely wants to be engaged but sometimes doesn't know how to get engaged.
We've got an abundance of creativity, an abundance of learning, an abundance of intelligence, of energy, and by coming together, then we can create system change. We're not going to do it by ourselves.
So you can see there that it's about a place-based approach, and it's not only about art and about reuse and repair and circularity and climate, it's about systems change. So one of the main learning points, well, there are probably several, but a couple worth mentioning, is that people need to feel connected. They need to feel part of the change, they need to feel they have some agency over the change. That was one thing, was a clear learning. And another one, I think, is that you can't enable that change. I think it's kind of been said today already, unless you also enable the broader systems change. So the fact of the matter is, on the whole, the way in which we do things doesn't work for the way we would like things to work. So we have to change the system. So I look a little bit around this, and of course in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, you have a president there that's very interesting on this topic. So he's given various addresses around the sort of way the system works and how it might need to change. And so I'm going to quote a little thing from him around the current economic model. That's an address he gave at OECD. So he was talking about the current economic model. He says, new ideas are thus now required, and even more, their communication to citizens. Ideas based on equality, universal public services, equity of access, sufficiency, sustainability. He was on to say that there are plenty of new ideas there, but he says they must find their way onto the public street. So the other big learning is that we didn't reach everybody, and even in the Derry City and Stormont District Council area. But if we want this sort of shift to happen, we've got to position this so that everybody can actually take part and help with that. So, and then the other thing we would say is that art, and I think Sue said that very brilliantly at the start, is that art's at the heart of this. It's at the center of it. It's not an add-on that you use to help make the existing system work. It's the way in which the system ought to be thinking about working. So if you're going to transform, you've got to put art at the heart. And why? Why should you put it at the heart? Just to answer that question, number one, I referred to it earlier, it helps us make meaning. And we can't reimagine the world if we don't know what it means, or we can't see what it means now and how we could shift it. Again, the work we saw earlier around how we make marks in the world, how that inspirational kind of craft on jumpers and other things makes us rethink our approach to things. That making a mark's a very powerful role for the arts and culture. And the other one is looking backwards to look forwards. The stories that are really important to us that have been passed down over generations and generations. And if we go across the world into indigenous cultures in Native America or in New Zealand or even here on the island of Ireland and all across these islands, we will learn some of the stories and relearn some of the stories that will help us to reimagine the future. So this is not a linear thing from our point of view. This is a cultural shift we're talking about. So if it's a cultural shift, you've really got to think about it culturally. It's an act of imagination. So that's what Artitude going forward is going to do, just to give you the information. A set of residencies, long-term, year-long residencies in community settings, helping people to do things that matter to them, to start to shift this. Festival programming, which is a way to gather lots of different people together. And we'll be doing that over 3 years. A very strong learning and dissemination thread, and some really important research and evaluation. We want to listen to people, you know, at the grassroots level and find out what it is that we should learn from them. So I mentioned the cultural shifts, so just to say a few of those out loud. So the power and meaning of place, I think, is really important in this. We look at public policy from a government level, and we look at it, I suppose, disparately at a grassroots level based on the organisations. But if you also look at it at a place-based approach, that could be really helpful because people care about place, because they have agency in place, and it matters to them, and they inhabit it, and they have pride in it. New stories, old stories, I've mentioned that, learning from the past to look to the future. This one I think has been talked about a lot, but the question I would ask is, how do we do that well? How do we collaborate together? We are collaborating, and we can see evidence of that, but it's not, our practice of collaboration is pretty weak, I would suggest. And that last word of enchantment, I think, is really important. This isn't about the obvious stats, even though they're really important, and measuring this really matters, and having credible information is really important. But we will only shift if our imaginations are engaged, if our deepest sense of emotions and the stories that matter to us are engaged. We won't shift otherwise. So enchantment's a good thing to have in the room, I think. These are fairly obvious in a room like this. But again, worth saying, GDP to well-being. We do a lot of measuring around gross domestic product or gross added value, but we have programs of government that are to do with well-being. We don't seem to kind of put as much value in that. The others, I think, are fairly obvious. Maybe one to say very clearly is the last one, exploitation to equity. We talk a little bit about fairness in the room today, but that has really got to be central to it. At the moment, our current paradigm, even though we don't like to admit it, it is exploitative, and I'm including myself in that scenario. It exploits resources, it exploits people, but really what we need is a more equitable way of doing things. So that's a cultural shift. Hopefully that wasn't too serious for you. Thank you. Yeah.
Kevin, thank you very much indeed. And just a reminder that Eimear McNally has been recording this day in graphic form, and you can see what she's been working on just as you go down into the repair hub on the right there. It's fabulous. All the speakers have been immortalised, so do spot yourselves. So no one in this room is likely to be in any doubt of the difference made by what each and every one of you actually does. But our next video, Story of a Jumper, reinforces just how important every thread of every strand that makes up this movement is.
Yesterday, scissors cutting, an old Singer sewing machine spinning. These sounds remind me of my grandmother, always mending, whether for others or herself. These are your grandpa's favorite trousers. Another stitch here and voila, good as new. Beside her sewing, I'd linger, listening to her tales and asking her many questions. Back then, I couldn't tell what anchored me there, but I sensed its comforting feeling. Now I understand. It was passion, love, and bond. The bond between us. The bond between her and the worn garments that she tenderly repaired. Between her and her beloved ones. It took a long journey in my life around the globe to fully appreciate this connection, found again here in Northern Ireland, where that same spirit thrives among people who love to repair, nurture and share. A hole may loom in my life, but I hold the needle to mend it. Today, Unraveled, the story of a jumper. Author Marcella Di Palo. Illustrator Kira Finnegan. Editor Colin O'Mahony. I have served my role in this life honestly, loyally, and with integrity. I come from good stock, you could say. However, I was becoming tired, worn down, worn out, and just plain old tired. I started developing a hole. This hole was draining energy from me. My partner, my owner, wasn't very excited to choose me from among her clothes anymore, and I could tell she was upset about it because we really had an extraordinary time together. I had seen other objects in the house being dismissed, and I was wondering what was happening to them. This hole needed love, attention, and repair to bring back my vitality. This whole situation had gone on for too long. But still, I wasn't ready to give up. I had so much more to give and serve. My soul was dynamic and teeming with potential, big enough and with enough energy for a second chance to shine in this life. I was lucky that my partner also had a strong soul and wasn't hesitant to keep taking great care of me. She took me to a place where souls and holes went to get mended. Going in, I was nervous. However, I had a chance to mix with other pre-loved souls who were in a similar position. We were attended to by fixers, carers, and repairers, creative minds working to give us new purpose. We had new life breathed into us at a time when we thought our vitality was waning. We were transformed. I was transformed. The day got even more exciting when I realized that we were back home, but not just me and my partner. She had found new members of the family. A beanie hat that would match with my colors, a hot water bottle cover, and a cushion cover. All from the same old treasure, a pretty and loved jumper like me. This hole was repaired, and the soul of my partner had new life breathed into it. So, if you have something that you love, something a bit worn or in need of some loving care and restoration, go to find those spaces where the souls and holes are repaired. It's all part of the circle of life. This story was produced with the support of the Artitude Climate, Culture and Circularity Project, with funding from the National Lottery Climate Action Fund. For more information on the Artitude project, please visit the Playhouse website. With much gratitude to Claire Mulvaney, who planted the seeds from which this story of change has grown.
Beautiful story, and one that really encapsulates this movement. Eimear, I'd like to invite you to the podium for a few closing remarks before we wind up.
One of the, well, not one, but a core value in being part of the Artitude project is the recognition that arts is central in terms of how we communicate the message going forward. And the story of the jumper is one of the outputs of this project. The other aspect to think about as well is that when we host events like this, we bring along a graphic recorder because we recognise that there are other ways of capturing the information that we're saying today and then communicating that ongoing as evergreen content in our social media. We also recognise that sometimes the messages that we're trying to communicate can be very challenging for the audiences that we're trying to reach. And we are very comfortable in this room talking about circularity, about biodiversity, about climate change, CO2 emissions, whereas the general public will struggle with those terminologies. And actually it can be off-putting, intimidating, and plain sometimes scary. So actually what the arts allow us to do, and hopefully what you've seen today in terms of the boards that we've got illustrators to develop for us, is how we're now looking at how, as being part of the Artitude project, which has been kindly funded by the National Lottery Climate Action Fund, how we then are using that to communicate the message of our members and of the value that our members bring to reuse and repair in Northern Ireland. I just want to finish the day by doing a huge round of thank yous. So if you can leave the clapping right to the end. But first of all, I really have to acknowledge Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. One, for their continuing funding of Northern Ireland Resources Network. Two, for their funding of the event today. Three, for encouraging and inspiring the Minister to join us. And four, when we, a number of months back, went to the department to say, we'd like to host our next event at Stormont, the colleagues there just going, yeah, okay, and being so engaged and working proactively with us to develop what we have today. So I just really want to put a special word of thanks to Wendy, Ruth and Leslie. Second set of people that I really have to give credit to is the linchpins of NRN, which is Helen and Caroline. They are a formidable force, and I could not do my job at all unless I had their support and backing. So personal thanks to both of you. The other linchpins of the organisation are our volunteers, who are our board. So that's Marcus, Heidi, Nuala, Liam and Michael. And without them giving of their time and energy and experience and skills and collaborating with us freely, we would not be able to operate as an organisation. So my personal thanks to all of you. All of the speakers today, again, the stories that they've told, the highlighting of the collaboration to grow this network and the sharing of their experiences from other regions allows us to understand and learn and maybe adopt some of those measures ourselves as we go forward in our personal lives or in our roles, in our communities or in our jobs. So thank you all for sharing those stories today. Eimear McNally for coming along and depicting not just in relation to, drawing and communicating through the arts what has been said today, but also bringing her imagination to this event and tying it in by making it look like the Giant's Causeway. So personal thanks for you for that creativity in that. It doesn't feel like we're having an event without Rory and Danny because they've been with us in terms of any time that we do any video. So really appreciate that. Again, Rosalind Skillen is not part of the NRN team, but she does feel like she's part of the NRN team. And she has been there helping us from our very first event in the Playhouse to our event in Lislagan Farm last year and today recording podcasts. All of the members of the network, again, if you weren't members of this network, we would not have a network. We wouldn't be having an event here today. So I really personally thank you for attending and your support of the network, and particular thanks given to all of the members who've come along here today to share their lending, their sharing, and their reuse and their repair. So hopefully inspiring, others who are not active in this space currently, but want to learn more, but also particularly the politicians, so that when they're looking at funding and policy for the future, they remember that we've brought this to their space and they have a greater understanding of what we are delivering. Other special thanks has to go to the Fashion and Textile Design Centre, or one of our members. So in terms of the t-shirts that my colleagues have been wearing today, we've all went out and bought those from a charity shop, each individually. Some of us really easily, some of us more challenged in doing that. But we've then given them to the Fashion and Textile Design Centre, who've logoed them up. So it's that thing about you can create a corporate image. You just don't always need to buy new. There are ways of doing it. The badges that we have, they again are made by the Fashion and Textile Design Centre. And the bags that anyone who's got anything fixed, you will have been given a bag today. That was made from an organisation in 5 Mile Town who makes corporate clothing. That's the offcuts of their manufacturing process. That would otherwise have been given as waste. That was given to the Fashion and Textile Design Centre, who've now made bags from it, and again had that logoed up with our logo. So again, it's that thing about, sometimes I'm sure if you've been at other events, there's freebies there, which have been made maybe farther afield or plastic or whatever else. But what we're trying to demonstrate in the work that we're doing is that you can do this and you can embrace reuse and repair in doing that. I am sure I have forgotten somebody in the process of doing all of this, but really, again, just want to thank all of you as delegates for attending today, for your time and attention, and really just ask of you that as you go out of here today, to think about, what has been inspiring, what are some of the actions that you can then do ongoing, personally, I said, in your communities or in your organisations, to develop further reuse and repair and move it from niche to normal. Thank you.
Eimear, thank you so much. And if I can add my voice to the chorus of thanks to you and all of the team for everything that you have done. It's been wonderful. It's been a great experience to be part of this. Heartfelt thanks to all of you for coming along and to the staff here at Stormont. Eimear mentioned these beautiful badges. Don't forget to hand them back, lovely as they are. You can't take them home, they have to be reused. So pay them forward by handing them back. We've been encouraged today to acts of imagination, acts of joyful rebellion. We've heard that we are dynamic and teeming with potential when we are seeking reuse and repair. There's no doubt there's a long way to go, let's be honest about that. But I'm reminded today of something I learned when I was doing my A-levels. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that's whole with a W. It's the basic tenet of Gestalt psychology. Every ripped shirt that's repaired, every hairdryer or pair of straighteners that now works, every bike that can now be cycled, every teacup glued maybe together with gold. Each act of repair or reuse and encouragement to do that is a part that adds up to a greater whole and a circle that keeps on expanding, bringing that niche to normal. I'll maybe see some of you again on the repair day in October, here's hoping. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for today, for coming along, being so engaged and invested. Thank you for all that you do, and safe home. Thank you.